If you bought a new build home in Britain in the last 10 years, there is a 93.7% chance your walls are already failing. And you signed a contract that makes every single defect your problem, not the developer's. That is not a guess. In 2024, the Home Builders Federation surveyed thousands of new build buyers and found exactly that. Walls that weren't plumb, drainage that backed up within weeks. More than a quarter reported 15 or more individual faults in a single home. A home they'd just paid £250,000 for. Meanwhile, there is a 3-bedroom semi in Wolverhampton, built in 1934, that has survived the Blitz, 60 British winters without central heating, and 3 generations of the same family. The walls are solid, the roof is original. The plaster has never been touched. A house built 90 years ago is outlasting a house you haven't finished paying for, and that is not an accident. Today we're exposing what's actually inside the walls of a new build, the materials your developer hoped you'd never look at. We're pulling apart the boiler con that has British homeowners replacing a perfectly engineered system a decade before they should. And we're going to show you why the complaint system designed to protect you was built to do the opposite. Each one is worse than the last. Let's start with what your developer calls contract standard. Because if you bought from Persimmon, Barratt, Taylor Wimpey, Bellway, or Redrow in the last decade, that phrase shaped every material inside your home. Contract standard sounds like a specification. It sounds like a benchmark. It is neither of those things. It is the industry's internal shorthand for the cheapest option that won't trigger an immediate warranty claim. Not durability, not quality. Just, will it survive long enough for us to close out liability? Take your internal walls. A 1930s semi has solid plaster on brick or blockwork. 90 years later, you knock on that wall and hear something behind it. Density, mass, structure. Your new build has 12.5mm plasterboard on timber stud. Tap it and it sounds hollow because it is hollow. It dents if you lean furniture against it. It cracks the moment the house settles, and new builds always settle. This is not a building material. It is a surface stretched over air. But the plasterboard is cosmetic. What they've done to the woodwork is structural. Every skirting board, architrave, door frame, and increasingly the doors themselves are MDF, medium density fiberboard. Sawdust and resin pressed into a board. It swells when it gets damp. It crumbles when you try to refix a hinge. It cannot be repaired, only replaced. A solid pine door from a 1950s council house is still hanging on its original hinges right now. An MDF door from a 2020 Persimmon development will be landfill within 15 years. You can go and ask any joiner. And what they've done to the outside is even worse. Go and look at a Victorian terrace. Look at the pointing. Look at the bond pattern. That was laid by tradesmen who served apprenticeships and worked by the hour. Now look at a new estate built by bricklaying gangs on price work, paid per 1,000 bricks, not per hour. The courses aren't level. The mortar joints are inconsistent. The perpins don't align, which investigated new build quality in 2023 and found cracking, missing wall ties, and mortar joints you could push a finger into. These aren't snags on a checklist. These are structural compromises in a building you will be paying for until 2054. But the materials you can see and touch are only half the scandal. The real engineering crime is hiding inside your boiler cupboard. Your new build almost certainly has a combi boiler, probably a Worcester Bosch, a Valent, or an Ideal. Here's what the developer never told you. These boilers are manufactured by the same companies, in the same factories, using the same core engineering that produce boilers for the German market. In Germany, the expected lifespan of a domestic boiler is 20 years, minimum. Many run for 25. In Britain, the same manufacturers publish guidance suggesting 10 to 15 years. Same factory, same parts, different lifespan. The reason is not the boiler, it's everything around it. In Germany, boilers are installed by qualified engineers into well-insulated, properly designed heating systems. In a British new build, your boiler is undersized by design because a smaller unit costs the developer less. It's connected to the cheapest radiators that meet minimum output specs. It's heating a house with the bare minimum insulation the developer could get past building regulations. Regulations they lobby to keep as low as possible. Your boiler is a marathon runner being forced to sprint every single day. If you're turning up your thermostat right now and your house still feels cold, you are already paying for this. And when that boiler finally gives up, and it will, years before it should, a gas engineer will look at the system, look at the cheap radiators, look at the undersized unit the developer installed to save a few quid, and tell you 6 words: it is not worth repairing. Then you'll spend $2,500 to $4,000 replacing a boiler that should have lasted another decade. The developer will be long gone. But the most insulting part of this entire racket isn't the materials. It isn't the boiler. It's what happens when you try to hold anyone accountable. The new Homes Ombudsman was created to give buyers a route to justice. Since launching in 2022, it has handled roughly 1,300 formal cases. The CMA's own 2024 housebuilding market study found systemic issues across the sector, affecting tens of thousands of buyers every year. 1,300 cases against an industry producing over 200,000 new homes annually. That is not oversight. That is a rounding error. And even when the Ombudsman does rule in your favor, which it does about 70% of the time, the average compensation awarded is £626. The average amount buyers were actually claiming? £5,233. You are claiming $5,000 in damages and being handed 600 quid. The gap between what you lost and what you receive is not a shortfall. It is a policy. Quick question before we get to solutions. If you bought a new build and found defects, did the developer actually fix them? Or did they send round the same subcontractor who caused the problem? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear it. So if the volume house builders cannot be trusted and the complaint system is designed to exhaust you, what are informed British buyers actually doing? Option 1. Buy a pre-1960s property and renovate. This is the smart money play. A 1930s semi or a 1950s ex-council house was built with solid walls, proper plaster, and timber that has already proved it can last a century. Yes, a serious renovation will cost you $30,000 to $60,000 on top of the purchase price. But here's the maths that makes it the cheaper option. A new build depreciates the moment you complete. Industry estimates put the first-year drop at 10 to 15%. On a $300,000 house, that is $30,000 to $45,000 in lost value before you've hung a picture. Add the boiler replacement at year 10, the MDF doors and skirting you'll redo at year 8, the damp repairs from poor brickwork. You're looking at $15,000 to $25,000 in repair costs inside the first decade. A renovated 1930s semi appreciates. A new build depreciates and deteriorates. Over 10 years, the old house isn't the more expensive option. It is the only rational one. Option 2. If you must buy new, buy from a small regional builder, not a PLC. Small firms build 40 to 100 homes a year, not 40,000. They use local subcontractors they'll work with again. They build in the communities where they live. Ask to see their NHBC claims history. Ask for the names of the plumber and the electrician. If they cannot tell you who laid the bricks, walk away. Option 3. Commission a full independent snagging survey before completion, not after. Before, a proper snagging surveyor, independent, not developer recommended, costs $300 to $600 and will typically find between 50 and 100 defects that the site manager already signed off on. Under the Consumer Rights Act 2015, you have 6 years to claim for faulty goods and workmanship. Document everything. Photograph everything. That report is not a formality. It is your legal ammunition. Here is the truth that Persimmon and Barratt and Taylor Wimpey will never say out loud. A house built in 1935 with no insulation, no central heating, and an outside toilet is structurally superior to a house built in 2024 with smart thermostats and underfloor heating. Because the 1935 house was built from materials that last by tradesmen who cared. The 2024 house was built to hit a share price. Stop calling them homes. The developers call them units internally, and they build them like units. Start treating your next purchase like the biggest audit of your life. Because that is exactly what it is. Subscribe. Because next, I'm covering new build kitchens, the worktops, the cabinets, the integrated appliances. The same developer spec trick is running through every one of them. And that one is even worse.